A lot of producers are really excited about AI. Many producers are excited to just push a button to instantly generate a beat. I get the comments all the time because I'm incredibly critical of the ethics of generative AI platforms. And I see the comments all the time of people bragging that they've just made 500 songs within the last 3 months by pushing a button on an AI platform, and they're all hits. Hits. I personally think they have the S at the end when it should be at the beginning of that word. But also from where I stand, it appears that there are really two types of producers who are super enthusiastic about the platforms that are currently being sued by the RIAA for stealing the music on which their AI is trained. And that's either producers who don't make a living doing this and so therefore just don't care what happens to the world of production. They don't understand intellectual property. They don't understand how potentially destructive it is to have platforms that steal from people like, well, any of us on the internet with our beats online or on albums. And the other category of producers who are super excited about AI are the ones that are already super rich. We're talking multi-millionaires, potentially even billionaires in the case of Kanye, though he didn't say exactly which AI platform he endorsed. And none of it's resolved. The legalities are still up in the air. The lawsuits are still ongoing. And these lawsuits are going to have huge implications once they are actually resolved. But pain is just like auto-tune and the drum machine. All right, let's talk about that. So as we do, we had a conversation about it. And we had a great special guest, Brandman Sean, who wanted to debate a lot of the points that myself and my co-host of the MEC podcast made about AI. We covered a lot of topics with Brandman Sean. If you want to watch the full episode, that link is below. And if you want to get angry about AI, either because you agree or disagree with me, then I appreciate you watching.
I want to ask Payne something specifically, and I have no ties to this this company or situation, like the Suno conversation. Outside of that CEO statement, that specific statement, which I think is still worth talking about, do you have anything against that company or similar companies? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, and I've made content about that. I was an early adopter of AI, and Google's AI was kind of the first accessible music generation that I ever used. And we were using it until we started hearing producer tags on the outputs. And then Ben Jordan exposed the same when it came to Suno and other generative AI platforms. And there aren't very many generative AI platforms that do what Suno does. But when Suno was outputting Honorable C Notes tag, Day Trips tag, when it's a producer tag, it's a very clear infringement case, because that's copyright infringement. That's a sound recording. That's a trademark. So there you go. There are two types of legal infringement. And then when it comes to the likeness, if it's Future's voice, if it's Beyonce's voice, then that violates the Elvis Presley Act, which is a pretty relatively new law, but it protects artists from non-consensual AI exploitation. My concern is always when these conversations come up, we compare AI to the DAW, we compare AI to the drum machine, we compare AI to digital recording. Mm-hmm. The fundamental differences between all of those things are one, human input, and two, consent. And I think those are humongous differences. Those are hills that I personally can't get over, which is not to say that there aren't AI companies out there. For example, the Dallas Austin company, their slogan was fair, and I don't know what it was, but it sounded like it was community based and it wasn't necessarily generative. It was just a framework to assist creatives and pursuing their creativity. And like you said, Sean, just kind of eliminating a lot of the kind of mindless tasks that block us from getting to our actual creative goals. And I've partnered with Lemonade, for example, after lengthy conversations with them about ethics and equity and input and licensing. So there are tons of AI platforms and companies out there that absolutely are pushing forward when it comes to the technology, but they're doing it in an ethical and assistive sort of way, not a sort of unethical colonial perspective, the way that, for example, I don't know if this is just a example to kind of put things in a different context rather than music, but the Fantastic Four official advertising campaign was all AI photos, and people were responding terribly to it. It was AI generated art, and people were catching all the imperfections and just the people's hands look like this, and there were face clones. And it was interesting to see the reaction from fans to that campaign. I mean, it was very clearly AI. You could tell. And I think at some point in the not so distant future, we're not going to be able to distinguish AI from non-AI. But for now we can. And in that case, there absolutely was a graphic designer or a photographer or an arts director who was replaced, who could have gotten paid by that studio and who wasn't, because somebody decided they wanted to try AI to generate the visuals for this promotion. And I think, like as you said, Sean, there's no accounting for taste. Absolutely. And people are catching it in music and people are catching it in visual arts. That's not to say that every time we use those generative AI platforms, we're not training it to get better and eventually become more effective at that replacement.
Do you think that the company was just testing it and they knew it was going to be an issue? Maybe even a part of some marketing, or like, I don't know, because I would imagine that they have enough people reviewing it to see that there's issues. I haven't seen the campaign, but like, was it like just super obvious that it was?
It kind of looked as though somebody who sort of knew, I guess what you would call a technician, right? Someone who knows the technical elements of graphic design, but not the creative elements or the taste and the curation that someone who is, I guess, for lack of a better term, truly an artist would have. And so I don't know. I mean, if that's a campaign where they're trying to drum up controversy, I think that's a misstep, because I don't see the positive in that.
Yeah, no, I get it. So your biggest things are all around ethics, just to be clear, when it comes to
because ethics would entail morals and legalities, and at this point, I feel like it's pretty clear that certain platforms. You asked me about Suno specifically; they're violating both, and I know you didn't want to contextualize the conversation within the conversation that the CEO had, but I think it's telling that he tripled down on his statement that music isn't fun to create because it's difficult to learn. And so I think that's telling. Yeah.
I mean, I do agree. That's creating a problem that doesn't exist, at least and in mass, just to position yourself to solve it. Obviously the people who love it, that's a part of it. That's a part of the game for sure. Maybe trying to tap into this market of people who don't love and create music, but that creates another question. It's like, you want to make music accessible for people who don't love it enough. I don't know. But then is we talking about an old head conversation of, hey, I had to walk 4 miles to school and up the mountain and you can do it easily. Like, so I think that's the conversation that humanity in general, and technology often collides with. I think that, actually, let me clarify, because I know I've brought up the technician. It might sound like I demean or look down on the technician. To create clarity on that, when we talk about art, right? In the music conversation, people are looking more of what's different, what's unique, et cetera, the height of creativity. So that's that's when the technician isn't at its peak, right? In terms of what they're able to provide or impact in terms of the new creative art and what everybody tends to talk about in our space. However, like, there's plenty of space and value in technicians. Like, even if you look at it and reverse the context, if I am a Quincy Jones or a Michael Jackson or anybody who was like, yeah, I want to show me the best designer in the world, show me the best this in the world, and now let me use them because I want to tap into what they have. Or wait, who played that? Whose voice is that? So they're still going to be valuable in their own way. It's just for the people who are pursuing it as a way of a sense of like, hey, I'm an individual artist, creativity, building a fan base. Those are the people who are going to have a little bit more trouble, creating a fan base in the space that, I exist. And that's where I see artists complaining about. So that's why I come to bring that context.
Could I get a little bit more clarity on what you're saying just now? You're saying that I hear about the technicians. I get that, especially when you've made the first clarifications. But you're saying, what's the place with the artist that you feel like AI is going to, like the tension place, I understand. But who do you feel like it's going to be replacing or making more difficult?
You're going to have the lower level artists who is just doing random, like creative stuff and they don't have any real skill set. They'll be replaced, right? Why? Because AI can do basic music, right? Like there's a lot of bad music on reality TV, all right? Well, we can just create that bad music through music with our own music supervision software or something. Cool. So those people will be replaced. Then there's going to be some artists that have some really good music, but they don't have a strong creative leaning outside of it. They're going to have a way harder time. I can't tell you how many artists I talk to that is like, all right, I have a song and all right, cool. So what are you thinking for the visual? I don't know. Like they need a videographer, photographer, a designer, the style. Somebody else has to put the taste on them. They don't even know how to represent themselves to the world. They're going to have a lot more of a struggle because you'll have other people who just can do those things more easily. And then the lower level technicians also will have a big struggle. So you're going to have to really get into that fine tuning best where you're a high level technician, almost to the point that it requires you to be creative to be that type of technician. So for instance, there's a guitarist by the name of Sharky, Isaiah, I believe is his first name. And he plays the guitar. John Mayer loves him. Like, he was like, yo, man, be on my tour. You're amazing. And like, he was like, I'm not trying to tour anymore. But then John Mayer like brings him back on his tour and like, hey, I'll give you some more money, etc. Because not only does he want him on the tour as a guitarist, he actually wanted to learn from him specifically. And he's played for so many of the greats. And what guitarists love about him, they say his style is so unique. Turns out, like a strong reason that his guitar style is so unique is he didn't learn it the traditional way. It's like I think he used like organs and other instruments as the foundation of how he plays and the style in which he plays. I wouldn't hear it because I'm not that level of technician, but or just artists within that space in general. But the people who understand it, they know, and they know what's happening. They know that he's doing something different, right? So an average fan might not be able to value that, but high level technician, guitarist, etc., they know what's happening and they're trying to pull from it, glean from it, still even. So you'll have individuals like that still have a struggle to like build their own personal base without being able to create all the other things around them, which isn't that different than what currently exists, but it's just going to be even harder than before because the people who have those, there's so many people who will have just as much, but then be able to tap into the other forms of creativity that AI is going to make accessible. I hope that made it clear. If not, my bad.
Yeah, no. Well, I fully understand what you're saying now. I mean, no, I just wanted to understand Sean's perspective. I don't think I'm standing in opposition to AI. I actually don't think it's going to replace anybody, but people who aren't willing to adopt it into their methodology. I think that low-level technicians, if they're highly adaptable, they're going to be able to excel. I think high-level technicians, if they're not adaptable, they won't excel. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think there's a specific person. I think my issues like pain are more wrapped around the ethics, especially how they affect my people, and then the future of artist rights and things like that. But I think like it's just like, you know, like Dame said, like auto-tune, all those different things. And then I think that, you know, there's a level of sales that's massive here that that I don't like when it comes to like, you know, again, that was my disgruntlement with Timbo. It was just like, I feel like things are being misrepresented in order to sell a technology instead of properly framing what's going on. But yeah, no, I think we're all aware and I think we're more on the same page than we're not on the same page with all of these things.